episode of Nostalgia Goggles, brought to you by Full Metal Media. That's right, it's our third episode. We're so excited to be back here on Nostalgia Goggles. Unfortunately, took a week off just because, scheduling, but we're back. And it's not the episode that we promised in the last episode. We kind of had some scheduling issues. The one that I mentioned before, we're actually going to get to on our next time. But we do have an awesome episode. It's one that's been on the schedule for a while. It's one that we've been planning. And we have our first guest. We finally, my co-host and I have our first guest tonight. So we're really excited. And this is going to be a fun one. That's right. So with me, as always, is my faithful co-host, RJ. I think he's steamed up again. He's got a lot to say tonight. How are you feeling being back for our third episode?
Oh, it feels good to be back, and I'm about to make it 3-0 because there's no way I'm about to lose this tonight.
Interesting. And interesting. And our guest tonight, we're so excited to have him. He picked the movie from the 80s and basically got this whole episode rolling. So Sandman Robinson, how do you feel to be here on Nostalgia Goggles for the first time? Our first guest. I think it's a perfect choice for our first one.
Hey, I'm 100% honored over here, guys, to be the first guest and the next person in RJ's meat grinder. But you know what?
He's not yelling at me for once. It's gonna be fun.
That's great. You know what though? I'm happy. I'm not a big debater when it comes to what movies people like and what movies I like especially. But in this case, I think that it's a really good opportunity to bring some, and this whole thing, this whole nostalgia goggles thing is a great way to bring to light maybe some movies that some of our younger people that are playing and in this community haven't had a chance to watch. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be fun. All right. So for the people that are new, the way this show works is we each pick a movie from our childhood. Usually, since I'm the older guy, I pick a movie from the 80s. And RJ being our resident 90s kid, he picks a movie from the 90s. And they have a similar theme that are connected. And then we pitch those movies, talk about what we thought of them when we were kids, talk about what we think about them now. And then at the end, we have a vote. And one of the decade/movies is going to win the day based on what everyone votes at the end. But today we're doing something a little different with our guest panel. The movie that Sandy nominated, he nominated a movie from the 80s. It's a movie I've never seen. So I'm actually jumping ship today. I'm actually on the 90s side today because the movie that RJ picked is one that I saw in the theater when I was 11 years old. It's a huge part of my childhood. It's kind of on the 80s, 90s border there. So it kind of falls more in my wheelhouse. So this is a movie that is huge for me. So unfortunately, Sandy, you're going to kind of be against me and RJ today. And you get to be the 80s guy and I get to be the 90s guy over there with RJ. But who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind based on this movie. You never know. I might, that 80s pull might have me back, and I might end up back with you by the end of it. We'll see how it goes. So
one of us has got to rep Team 80s.
Yeah. So of course that's why you're here. You got to pick up the slack. my Team 80s cohort. So the theme today is a really awesome one. It is Yar. Arr, mateys, it is pirates. Today our theme is pirate movies. We knew we were going to get there. Every movie that we pick is one that maybe didn't do that well with the critics, didn't get great reviews, maybe it wasn't a hit on its first release. So I think there's a lot of pirate movies, if you go back, kind of have fallen into that chasm. So there was actually quite a few other ones we could have picked. I remember the movie Roman Polanski's Pirates came out in like 86. That's one I saw as a kid. So I could have even picked that movie. Like there's a Cutthroat Island and other movies in the 90s. So there's a lot of places we could have gone. But the two movies we selected are 1982's The Pirate Movie. That's right. This was Sandy's choice. It is a movie that stars Christy McNichol and Christopher Atkins from The Blue Lagoon. So he was kind of a big deal in the early 80s. And it's actually an adaptation of The Pirates of Penzance, the famous musical made in Australia by Australian filmmakers. And then the movie that RJ and I selected today, I think a huge nostalgia pick for both of us, is the Steven Spielberg classic Hook from 1991.
Classic?
Hey, To us, it's a classic. To 11-year-old Jeremy, it's a classic. I'm sorry, Sandy. But in any case, yeah, the 1991 film, it was a kind of a reinvention, an update. You know, so what happened if Peter Pan grew up? What happened if he had to kind of get back in touch with being Peter Pan? And of course, it had the awesome Robin Williams in the role of Peter Pan. And then a little unfortunate, have to talk about it, but as Captain Hook, the Oscar-winning actor Dustin Hoffman, who maybe we found out some things about in recent days that aren't very pleasant, but you know what? Can't deny the guy's history. He's going to come up sometimes when we talk about movies. So, and I think he's phenomenal in this movie. So those are our two. So what we do is we're going to start off with basically the why we picked the movie section. We're going to basically describe the movie to you, a short description, tell you why we picked it, and go from there. So I'm going to turn the floor over. You know, my 80s friend, why did you pick the pirate movie? And just tell us about it. What is this movie? Why did you pick it?
All right. So the question of why I picked this movie was, I was a kid when I picked this movie, and I saw the trailers, and I loved. I used to watch with my grandparents. They would plop me down in front of the TV whenever I would visit, and they had a satellite dish, like not one of the ones that are like now, like that are this big, but one of the gigantic suckers that sits outside in your yard and takes up the entire space, and. They would put it onto something similar to like Turner Classic Movies, and I remember one weekend, it was all Errol Flynn.
Oh, wow.
And so I sat there and I watched these great sword fights, swashbuckling, you know, pirates and just having a blast and doing things that I wished I could do, like sticking a knife into a sail and sliding down it to escape people, or cutting a rope and flying up the ship's mast. They were just very
just real quick. I have to say, I remember one of the very first movies we watched on VHS with the family was Disney's Treasure Island, and I remember doing the same thing, being the pirate swinging across the furniture. So yeah, right. We loved them in the 80s.
That's right. So when I first saw this trailer, now you got to remember, in the 80s, trailers are way different than we were. They had the voiceover actor. Coming soon to a theater. And then they played this great trailer with swords and color and girls and, you know, and music, and not just old music, and not just movie music, but pop culture music, like popular music. And it was like a minute long, and I was just like, I have to go to see this movie. And I went to the movie. I went to the theater with my mom, and she took me, and I was mesmerized on the on the seat. I couldn't take. I wanted to go right back into the theater and watch it again. I didn't have enough time to learn all the songs while I was in. You know, so that's a little bit of why I love this movie and why I picked this movie.
What's the story? Tell us what the movie's about.
So the story is basically Christy McNichol's character, Mabel. She is one of multiple daughters, and if you know anything about the Pirates of Penzance, you understand that as well. And Frederick, who is played by Christopher Atkins, and he is a pirate, but doesn't want to be a pirate anymore. And they meet and fall in love. It's love at first sight. It's a typical, you know, like it's a typical love at first sight. They see each other on the beach and they go around, and then it's just pure fun. From that moment on, it is all fun and games. It's all songs. It's a musical. It's you know, they
I mean, to my point of view, it's a straight out comedy. Would you agree with that?
It's a straight up comedy. It really is. There's lots of good humor in it. There's lots of bad humor in it. But I mean, it's an experience that when you watch it, you'll probably not like it. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes, its percentage on Rotten
9%.
9%. However, once again, the audience score rating for it is like 88%. So
it is a cult classic. You're not alone, Sandy. I've heard about this movie a lot. It's not one that I ever personally had seen, but it's always talked about in like film cult and certainly cult musicals. I want to throw out real quick, the movie was directed by Ken Anakin, who was a Disney director of the Disney live action films in the 50s and 60s, actually did the classic Swiss Family Robinson. So a lot of legacy with him. The movie was made in Australia with an all-Australian crew. And it was kind of like with A Bug's Life and Ants or Armageddon and Deep Impact. It was one of 2 Pirates of Penzance movies that were in production and released at the same time. There was this one, and then there was the Pirates of Penzance. Basically, they filmed the stage version that was going on at the time, and that starred Kevin Kline and a lot of other great actors. Actually, Linda Ronstadt in the Mabel role in that one. Yeah. So yeah, those 2 were done at the same time. So I think, and you did mention the framing device, like it takes place in modern day and then it jumps back into the past. And so it's got that, it's kind of like a Wizard of Ozzy, it's all a dream sort of thing going on. Do you know where did they film it? Was that opening supposed to be in Florida or something? I was trying to, like at the very beginning, I almost thought it was Vegas, and then
I assumed it was Florida.
It's what it seemed like. It was like a Florida festival, like you're putting on a pirate festival in like Miami or
California,
something.
it could be
I mean, I'm sure they filmed it in Australia, but it seemed like it was supposed to be Florida or something like
somewhere
that.
where it's close to actual water and not fake water.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think that kind of gives us what the pirate movie is.
Ted Hamilton is in this movie as the Pirate King.
The Pirate King.
Absolute treasure. He's an absolute treasure. He's a comedic genius, and he's got a great voice. So
I would also throw out, while we're mentioning actors, I'll throw out Bill Carr as the Major General as well. Yeah. All right, so I think that kind of gives us what the pirate movie is. We'll get more into it when we open up the floor, and everyone's giving their true opinions on things. But that's basically Sandy's summation of the movie. So we're going to jump over to the 90s, and I'm going to kind of go take the lead on this. Originally, we were going to pick Cutthroat Island, but you know what? None of us had seen it. None of us wanted to see it. We had to pick a 90s pirate movie, and I'm like, hey, famously, Hook is one of the lowest rated Spielberg movies. Like, the critics savaged it. Siskel and Ebert ripped it to shreds. And even Spielberg has kind of disavowed the movie. He doesn't like it. He doesn't think that what he was trying to achieve with the movie was realized. So there is that. So I thought, let's do it. And hey, the real thrust of Hook is Captain Hook and his pirates and the Lost Boys. So it really is a pirate movie. So I thought that would be a good one to pick. So yes, 1991, directed by Steven Spielberg. I saw this one in the theater with my grandparents. It was a big moment for me, and I've seen it many times since. I love the John Williams score. I love Robin Williams' performance. I think he's great playing the like, you actually believe he's this dad in the modern day. This is terrible big cell phone who's just all wrapped up with his business, doesn't care about his kids. But he has to take this trip to England, to the orphanage where he was raised, and the woman Wendy, who he has to go visit her for her birthday, and then something happens and his 2 children are kidnapped, and we realize everything's kind of explained. This man Peter Banning was indeed the Peter Pan. He was taken, he was put in an orphanage, and he was raised without memory of who he actually was, and now he's got to go back to Neverland and save his 2 children who were kidnapped by Captain Hook, played by Dustin Hoffman. So the early scenes kind of have a little bit of a real world feel to them. And then once he goes to Neverland with Tinkerbell, played by Julia Roberts, the whole movie's on these sets, big lavish sets they build on giant sound stages. It's this adventure of him rediscovering himself. He teams up with the Lost Boys. I think for a lot of people, it was memorable character is Rufio, who is the leader of the Lost Boys. Rufio, played by Dante Basco. I love that kid and followed him like everything he did in the 90s after that. Did a few more movies, not too much, but yeah, it was a big deal for me. And to me, there's a lot of great pirate stuff in this movie. I think they had a lot of fun. Dustin Hoffman really has fun playing the old aging pirate who's kind of at the end, but he wants to have one more adventure. Bob Hoskins is funny as Smee. And then just the battle with the Lost Boys and the pirates. It's a lot of physical humor. But yeah, it's a good pirate movie. For me, it's a fun Spielberg movie. RJ, what do you think about Hook? Why did you want to talk about it today? Why did you want to nominate it?
Why would I not want to talk about Hook? Oh my God, this movie. I watched this at home. I had the VHS. I still have the VHS. That is one of the VHSs I refuse to let go of. Yeah. It's one of the VHSs that I refuse to get rid of a VCR because I still have it on VHS. I just refused to buy it on DVD. But I mean, this for me was the ultimate what if scenario as a kid. What if Peter Pan grew up?
It was a great
What
hook.
if he
A great
forgotten how to
hook.
fly?
That was a great hook for a movie.
Yeah. I mean, it was and like you said, the cast. Talk about an unrecognizable Dustin Hoffman. It took me years to realize that that was Dustin Hoffman. And for those of you who are a little bit younger than us 90 kids, if you think you recognize the name Dante Bosco, that is because he does a lot of voiceover work now.
He does
and
now,
two of
yeah.
his big roles for the 2000s, he was Jake Long from American Dragon, Jace Long, and his most popular one is as Prince Zuko in the Avatar series.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, great series.
But anyway, I mean, basically exactly what Sandy said about going on an adventure. This was that for me. I mean, this was way more what as a kid I wanted a Lost Boy to be, rather than the old Disney dressed like animals. We're just fooling around. We're throwing rocks and everything. No, these kids were like, all grown ups are pirates. We kill pirates. Their tree houses, like, I wanted to take a vacation there. I was like, can I visit this set and just spend the night in their tree houses with their train tracks and their ropes they climb down on? It just looked like the funnest place to be as a kid. And I mean, it took me away. It took me to Neverland.
Yeah.
It took me to Neverland more than the original Disney Peter Pan did. And that's saying something, because I love the original Disney Peter Pan.
Yeah.
But Hook really took me to Neverland. And that's why I can't get enough of this movie. I can't believe how much crap it got when it first came out. I just can't believe
it. By the way, still has haters. Like the comedian Doug Benson has gone on a crusade trying to attack people's nostalgia. And he's like, people over idealize movies from their childhood, and Hook is the #1 example. All these people then from the 90s want to say Hook was a great movie. This movie sucks. So it's still out there. The hate is still out there. You know?
It does not suck.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
And
right.
Archie, just let me interject just here for a quick second here. Yeah, like $9 for the Blu-ray on Amazon. You know, maybe get rid of that VHS, dude.
Nope. That VHS player has been with me through many a trial.
I had Hook on VHS. I wish I still had that, man.
For me, I don't know what it is. Like, just something. It's like when people listen to an old record. Just something. Sometimes just nothing beats a VHS. Yeah. Popping in and having to watch the previews.
I do still have my vinyl player. I wish I had that VHS. Yeah. I'm getting more nostalgic than usual.
I told you, man.
Let's move on to the next section here. This is the nostalgia review. So basically, we're going to jump back in time. We're going to put ourselves back in that childhood version of ourselves and basically try to put into words how we would have reviewed this movie, what we would have said about this movie as a kid, and basically what it meant to us as a kid in the words of the childhood version. So Sandy, put me back in the shoes of what you say were 9, something like that.
I think you said 11.
No, I was 11.
Oh, you were 11?
Yeah.
No.
So 72 to 80, 8 years.
Yeah, like 9, 10. Okay, so 10-year-old Sandy, tell me what you thought of the pirate movie, what it meant to you. What if someone came up and you said, you just watched the pirate movie, what do you think of this film? What would 10-year-old Sandy say?
Tubular. Awesome. Righteous. In all honesty, I would have. I wasn't a big talker when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So what you would have seen was this.
Just a big smile. Did you have a crush on? I gotta know. Did you have a crush on Christy McNichol? By the way, you had to.
Not so much.
No.
She in this movie, she's cute as heck. I mean, she's just like cute like a button. She's just and sexy. Don't get me wrong. She very much is. But I mean, I'm 10, right? So that's not what I was really looking for. But it had so many pop culture references in this movie.
It did. Yeah, they mentioned a lot of them.
You can't help but be smiling ear from ear. I mean, all of a sudden you go into the forest or the bushes and you grab yourself a switch or a little stick and you're fencing around, and like trying to be a pirate, and that for me, it's like walking out of Star Wars. You grab a stick and you're Luke Skywalker, you're Darth Vader, you got a lightsaber. So, anything that can elicit the response of you wanting to be like the person in the movie or be like the people in the movie, that's the reaction that I have. It just made just
it was
glow
a joyful young Sandy watching the pirate movie.
Exactly.
I kind of want to be back there with you, buddy. Wish you could be back there watching it with you. Right. Let's jump on. We'll get that DeLorean. All right, I'm gonna go over to RJ first here. RJ, take us back to being a young kid watching Hook on VHS, and what would you say if someone asked you about this movie with Peter Pan?
Bangarang. That's what I say about this movie. Bangarang. Once again, just like Sandy, as soon as that movie's over, you're outside grabbing a stick and you're Rufio. You got your friends chatting, Rufio, Rufio, Rufio. I mean,
Rufio.
Like I said, you never wanted to be a Lost Boy more than when you saw Hook. Like, you may want to like you wanted it for like the Neverland sense of it with the old cartoon Peter Pan, but with Hook, you wanted that adventure. You wanted to fight. You were like, yeah, I want to be that kind of Lost Boy. That's where I want to be. Because I was slightly older when I first watched it. I was like in the 9-10 age. So I was at that age already where I went from like playing with my action figures and them fighting to having toy guns and toy swords and fighting with your friends. So that was the perfect movie to imitate. I mean, I don't know how many times I watched the final battle scene of that movie. And not even more so, just when they armor up. I don't know why, but their armor was so cool.
So fun. All creative. Handmade stuff, yeah.
All the handmade stuff, the freaking blinds rolling down, and them like jumping through a cobweb so it sticks to them, and the little ones helping armor the big ones. Like, it's a real war. Like, that's what you really did in the military back then. The squires suited the knights, and they were legit following it with the younger Lost Boys and the older Lost Boys. It was just way too much fun. Way too much fun. I can't get enough of the movie. I'll watch it again and again. Anyone who's ever in the mood for Hook, I'm gonna sit down and watch it with you.
Yeah. All right, and like I said, I saw it in the theater with my grandparents. I was already a big film geek by the time I was 10, 11. So I'd seen every Spielberg movie, watched them all on VHS. I'd seen many Dustin Hoffman movies. He was like my favorite actor. Loved Robin Williams. I'd seen Good Morning Vietnam. I'd seen Dead Poets Society, Awakenings. I'd seen all those movies. So I was really jazzed when we went to Hook. And I still remember that first theater experience. Just the score, the joy of it, the flying scenes. I remember getting just really emotional. Like I think the flashback sequence really hit me when you actually see all of the memories. And then him kind of like rediscovering the Peter Pan coming back in him because he had to reconnect and remember all that stuff. By the way, cameo from Gwyneth Paltrow in her first movie in that scene as the young Wendy. She's actually Steven Spielberg's goddaughter. He kind of gave her.
Did either of us mention Bob Hopkins as Smee?
I did mention. I had mentioned Bob Hoskins. Like, also loved him from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So that was a big was a big selling point for me too. And I also remember just a lot of it being emotional for me. Kind of getting the ending. Oh my God, my marbles. I found my marbles.
Oh my God,
it gets me every time. It made a big impact on me. And I actually this was one of those moments in my life where I'm like, why didn't the critics like this? Why does this get all these bad reviews? I remember asking my grandparents, like, why did it get bad reviews? And they're like, I don't know. We enjoyed it. It was one of those moments for me. And it was one of the first Spielberg movies to really get lambasted. So even at the time, I loved it. And it's they had action figures. I had the Peter Pan, the Robin Williams action figure. And I acted out like every Peter. I did like old Peter Pan, new Peter Pan. There was a Peter Pan cartoon show that had Tim Curry did the voice of Hook, so I acted out scenes from that. I was still really into the action figures at that time. So it was a bit So 11-year-old Jeremy would definitely say Bangarang. And man, I love this movie. Spielberg, you did it again, and I sure want to see that dinosaur movie you're working on. So that's basically it. Jeremy would have said. All right, so the next segment of our show is what we call taking the nostalgia goggles off. So this is the moment where we have to take a look at our own movie that we picked and basically imagine we never saw it as a kid. We're watching this movie for the first time. What would we actually think if we watched this movie for the first time now? Like, what are our real thoughts? Kind of put a little more of that critic's hat on. So, Sandy, sorry to have to ask you to do this, but you gotta give us the what do you honestly think, looking at it now as an older man? What do you think of the pirate movie?
Oh, it's bad. Like, it really is. Like, I mean, it's a bad movie. Like, it's not good, but it's like, okay, so the music.
Why is it not good? What makes it bad?
So let's start with the prem. The acting, it's not fantastic. I mean, it really isn't. Even with some of the big, stage stars like a Ted Hamilton in it, and seasoned actors that are in it, the acting's not that great. I mean, it really isn't. Whether or not that's the dialogue, that's the script, or how it was presented, I don't know. The music, come on. The music doesn't really hold up all that well. I mean, I love it just because I still love it, but the music itself is pretty simplistic. Some of the really good stuff is the stuff that they pull right from Pirates of Penzance that is still good.
What do you think of them updating lyrics, like putting like modern lyrics into Major General, stuff like that they did? Do you think that works, or does that date the movie even worse?
I actually think it works because it actually fits the movie that it's in, and it does it pretty well. It does it pretty seamlessly. Like, you have to really listen to the song to find the.
Maybe when the Major General is doing like breakdancing hand motions, that might be a little obvious, but yeah, I get what you mean.
The choreography for the song, yes. I mean, there's a lot of bad, like nowadays would never be accepted kind of jokes in it.
Oh yeah. This was a kids movie, guys. This was PG rated.
This was rated PG, ladies and gentlemen.
This was a kids movie, but there's some real bad, like there's some racist humor in this movie.
And how?
And how
there is that. If you're a black person or a dwarf, you may not love this movie.
Or Asian.
Or Asian,
you're in trouble. But I think it also is a female empowerment movie as well. As much as it's got some sexist elements to it. Mabel's character is very much, I don't need a man to do what needs to be done. I'll lead the army against the pirates. I will do this. And she's a very strong-willed woman. And I think that gets overlooked a little bit in the movie. But I mean, if I was to give it a score, a percentage point, if Sandy is Rotten Tomatoes right now and I'm giving the score, I'm not going to put it at 9, but I'm going to put it at about the 25-30% mark. And
really?
Now, if I was going to watch it now, if I'd never seen it before, I'd probably look at it and go, all right, that was a movie, but.
So yeah, not good, but watchable, something like that. And maybe the themes hold up even if the movie itself doesn't.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So that's what our modern day Sandy would say about the pirate movie. So now we're going to jump over to Hook. I'm going to go first because I probably have more to say here. Okay. So Hook, honestly, I do understand the criticisms. I do get why Spielberg isn't very proud of the movie, because I do feel that once you get to Neverland, it is very set bound. It feels very artificial. I think that, if they'd made it today and they had more like of the today's special effects, that could have helped it a lot. I think it would have felt less like kids running around soundstage, or almost like we're watching a Disneyland thing rather than a real world. I don't think that it creates the world that he really set out to create, like he did so much better with Jurassic Park, which incorporated more of the real life settings in Hawaii with like special effects of dinosaurs. I don't think that Hook quite gets there. But that I don't think it hurts the movie that much, but I can kind of see why Spielberg is disappointed in it in terms of the world building, just being so set bound. I honestly never liked Julia Roberts in it. I think she's pretty terrible, honestly. I think it's one of her worst performances. I just don't think she gets Tinkerbell at all, like what the character is. Like Tinkerbell's kind of this troublemaking, angry character, and at least to me, that's what she always was to me. And I just think Julia Roberts is basically like playing standard Julia Roberts Pretty Woman character, and she seems really out of place and isn't very good in it. Yeah, I think Dustin Hoffman's great. So I can't. I really think he nailed it. It's a different take on the character. Like, I think if you go to like the 2003 Peter Pan, where Jason Isaacs played Captain Hook, I think that's a more of a traditional take on the character. Whereas this one, I think it's different. He's older. He's like kind of almost suicidal, but in a funny way. Like he doesn't really mean it, but that's the ongoing joke.
Try to stop me, Smith.
Don't try to stop me.
Don't you try to stop me. Don't you dare try to stop me, Smith. Try to stop me, Smith.
I love that part.
Well, I'll ask you, so I can ask you a question, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of the choices that Spielberg made about Hook and his suicidal stuff is all about the fact that he has no more challenges, you know, like I always thought one of the worst things ever was that the crocodile got killed and stuffed and stuck in the main square, and that was his, you know, triumphant little trophy that he had for it. I always thought that was a bad decision. What did you think when you saw the crocodile?
Well, I thought the whole theme of the movie is you know, when you don't have that thing that makes you you. And Captain Hook's whole thing that made him him was Peter Pan. You know, Peter Pan made him who he was. And when you take Peter Pan out of his world, he's not Hook, and he just becomes this old man, you know, like the old guy in the bar ruminating about the good old days. And that's all that he is. And yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the crocodile, honestly, I agree. It was always weird to me. Like, I never understood that part of it. I didn't really understand that choice either, but it didn't take away from the movie much for me. I thought it was cool that's like the centerpiece of the set is that huge crocodile. They actually built that thing. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, it was always a little weird. You know, I thought that if TikTok had still been alive, or maybe there were new like that's something they could have done more with. That might have made the movie a little more fun. But and his final end, it never made sense to me either. How he dies, like I still don't quite understand that. But whatever, you know, you roll with it. But yeah. Yeah, I get the criticisms with the movie, but for me, the movie still works. I'm sorry. The movie still works for me. I still enjoy it. I love Robin Williams. Like, for me, this and Popeye are his two most underrated performances. Like, I don't understand why these two performances don't get as much love as some of the other things that he did. Like, then again, like I said, at the beginning of the movie, I completely buy him as this dad who doesn't give a crap about his kids, who's lost he was the ultimate child, and now he's lost that completely. He's just about his job, and when he yells at his kids and like, what are you doing? Like, you know, when he's that frustrated workaholic, like, you get it. And to see him transform like every step of the way, Robin Williams convinces you with his performance in that movie. And I love Dustin Hoffman, and yeah, the kid, the Charlie Korsmo, who plays the son Jack, was in a lot of movies in the time too. What about Bob? He's the kid in that movie, which I believe was the same year. So yeah, there's a lot that I like in the movie. I don't think it totally works. I don't think it's one of Spielberg's best, and I get the criticisms that both he and critics have. But for me, you know, whether a movie's perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work on the right level. And I think that's kind of the message today that we're kind of saying, like, if the movie works for you, it works for you. And this movie definitely works for me. So RJ, if you watch Hook for the first time now, like, what do you have criticisms like I do? Or do you really think it's one of Spielberg's masterpieces? Like, honestly.
Like, okay, look, I know I'm never going to convince anybody that this is one of Spielberg's masterpieces, but is it one of my favorite movies by him? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This is arguably, because Bring It On, I don't like E.T. as much as everybody else does. Mm-hmm. My top three Spielberg will always be Jurassic Park, Saving Private Ryan, and this.
Wow.
These are my top three for Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
You can always count on RJ to be honest. He doesn't sugarcoat any. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. He's going to give you the truth. And Hook is in his top three.
Bring It On. Don't get me wrong. It is number three. I'll give you all that. It is number three. But it's in my top three.
Well, it's certainly Schindler's List is certainly no Hook, but
oh shoot, that's right. Okay, make it four. I always forget Schindler's List is. I always forget that. Sorry. You know me and directors. I'm bad.
You and directors, I know.
Yeah, that's bad. But it fights for third. Don't get me wrong. Gotcha. It fights for third. It really does, because for me, it's like, for him, since he, like, okay, I'm going to get that on topic. Hook. I agree with you about Julia Roberts. As much as I loved her in the movie, she just felt like she was doing Julia Roberts. The only time I felt like she was like the Tink we knew is in the flashbacks when you see her heartbreak when Peter chooses to stay.
Yeah.
And when she realizes that when he's finding himself again and she wants him to stay again, she realizes even though he's found himself again, he has grown up and I need to let him go. Like I felt like that part worked. I really did.
Now, I forgot to mention Maggie Smith, by the way, as Wendy. I think she's also one of the standouts in the film as well.
Oh my God, yes.
So genius.
When she has to like convince Peter, when she's trying to tell him like, you are Peter Pan, like you don't remember, like you really don't.
I always thought the reason that he stayed on Earth and didn't go back to Neverland was always very poignant for me. It's just that, you know, he's getting old. Like he is an adolescent and he sees a girl and, you know, it's Wendy's granddaughter. And he's like, I'm going to like all of that. And the way that like Maggie Smith plays that moment where she's like, I'm not the little girl anymore. I'm not Wendy anymore. I'm this older lady. But now, you know, it's time for him. It's time for him to be a man. It's time for him to actually grow up and not be a child anymore. And she recognizes that connection with her granddaughter to him. I love that moment. Like there's many poignant moments in this film.
I think that's the most heartbreaking part. Like for him, the one who played him as a kid, when she is saying that I'm old, when she says the lines, I've forgotten how to fly. That it's because that's what it's about for the whole movie. That's when he finds himself again, when he teaches himself how to fly again. That's the whole point. He's got to fly because that's what it was all about. Because as a kid, you could do anything. You could fly. That was the point. But
I love when the lost boy like pulls his face to show his smile, and when he sees his smile, he knows that it is you. Like, I thought all those kids were pretty good. I thought that like when the bigger kid like turns into a bowling ball thing, I thought that's pretty cheesy. That doesn't really work for me. I think that whole battle scene at the end is fun, but it's a little too comical for me. Like I would have liked a little. I mean, obviously the great moment is Rufio's death. Like that's also kind of was a tearful moment for me. Like that really lands, and Robin Williams, the way he plays that moment is really great. It could have been.
He looks up at him and says, "I wish I had a dad like you."
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude! I don't know about you, but I felt like every young boy felt that stab. Everybody felt it. Like,
wish I had a dad like, and that it's like the original the Disney Peter Pan is all about how the Lost Boys realize they wish they had a mom. Like they don't have a mom. That's the whole theme of the Disney film. The theme of Hook is they need a dad. And they need that role model in their life. It's just like he needs to rediscover what it's like to be a kid. These kids that don't have a dad need to discover what it is to have a dad. And I think that's a good theme in the movie. And even with Hook, like he kind of wants to be a father figure in a way too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because in the end, when it's he's trying to find his old happy thought, but then he finds the new one, and it is being a father. And it was beautiful. I thought it was great. I don't know what Steven Spielberg feels like he didn't get right. The story works for me. What doesn't work besides Julia Roberts? I'll agree with you on the final battle. It's a little comical. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
As a kid, obviously.
As a kid.
Like
now it's a little much now.
I don't know, man. I still get a kick out of all those weapons. I'm not gonna lie. I get a kick out of the 4-way paint gun every time it comes out, and he's just like, "Lost Boys down."
What about the part where the daughter sings? I feel like that takes me out of the movie a little.
Yeah, that takes me out of the
came
movie
out of nowhere because they don't set it up as a musical. Like they don't set it up as a musical. That was always a weird moment for me. Yeah. I thought like when they did that in Home Alone with the John Williams score, like that was a lot more natural in that film.
But like I said, what I brought up earlier, Bob Hoskins steals the movie for me as Smee. His Smee is just crack on, especially in the final battle. Smee, do something intelligent. Smee, what about Smee?
What about Smee? What about me?
Smee, what about me? And like the entire battle just goes around him as he's just collecting his gold and like, I'm gonna get out of here.
All right. Well,
it's great. It's
like I can understand.
You still love
it. I still love it. It's got its issues, but
It
All
holds
right,
up.
so that's going to wrap up that section, and now we're going to move on to what I'll call this the Mr. Nice Guy section, and this is where we have to talk about the other person's movie, and we can only say nice things. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to start with us this time. I'm going to start with you, RJ. Is there anything nice you can say about 1982's The Pirate Movie? I love doing this to you. This is so much fun. Tell us the good things.
I hate you. It was funny.
You laughed at some of it?
It made me like, huh? A couple of times. But other than that,
What about like the way it looked on the film in Australia?
My favorite part was Model of a Major General.
Okay, yeah.
That was my favorite part. It honestly was.
Yeah. Okay.
It was still dumb, but it was my favorite part.
But anything about like the way, like I said, the way it looked, what do you think of? What do you think of the pacing? Like, you gotta give that it's not as slow.
It was so long. It was so
that was
long.
a slog, huh? It's not as slow as the movies I made you watch.
No, but
it's got more of a pace than those movies.
Let's just move on before I start saying other things.
All right. So now we get to me, and I've kept my cards really close to the chest so far. I haven't said really given anything away on what I thought about the Pirate Movie, but I did watch this movie for the first time, and my thoughts are, I think there's a little button inside me. It's the 80s button. Sometimes that button gets pressed. I loved this movie. Loved this movie. I was from moment one, like once they started playing that synthy music at the beginning, and then they started doing Gilbert and Sullivan. I'm like, this is insane, and I love it. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's well paced. Like, come on, it's not slow like Oh Heavenly Dog was. Like, this movie, it's got a pace to it. It moves. And I thought it was funny. Like, there's so many lines. Like, what's that one line I loved? It was, is it a nymph? It's a nymphette. Nympho. Something great.
I'll admit another thing I did like. I could say I liked her fourth wall breaks that she would make
so
occasionally.
Good.
They were always really good.
Every time she talks to the camera, and I just got to talk about Christy McNichol for a second. Like, this is somebody who was going to be the next big thing. She was in a TV show called Family in the 70s, and then she started getting her big breaks in movies in the early 80s, and unfortunately, it just didn't go. Like, she never became a thing. I as a kid mostly knew her from dang it, I'm blanking out. There was a sitcom with Richard Mulligan, Empty Nest. Empty Nest, yeah, that's what I knew her from. But she also did a movie the same year called White Dog, which is a really interesting independent film made by the filmmaker Samuel Fuller. And that was when I saw that movie a while back. And it's a very interesting movie about this girl adopts a dog, a white German Shepherd, and it turns out that he's been trained to attack and kill black people. He's basically, racists have raised this dog, and she takes it to a black trainer and is trying to figure out, can they retrain this dog to not be racist? And it's symbolic about racism itself. Like, is that something when people have been taught that, can you change that? And she's so great in that movie. Like, she's so great. I'm like, why was she never a thing? What a great actress. And in this movie, to me, she is the movie. Like, she's like, it really is her story. And she's fantastic. She's funny. She's cute. Like, honestly, Sandy, if I was 10, I would have totally been in love with her because she's really cute. You know? So I loved all that about it. Like you said, the performers that I think had performed Pirates of Penzance, the Pirate King and the Admiral General, they're great. There's a lot of light of humor with those guys. Look, the movie's cheesy. I mean, but here's the thing: it doesn't try to be anything else. This movie is trying to be cheesy. It's trying to be a goofy, but it's take Pirates of Penzance and do a cheesy 80s musical with it. And all the cheesy 80s music I liked. Like, there was one of the songs, the one that Christopher Atkins sings, was a top 10 hit. Like, that movie, that song charted. Maybe too many love ballads.
I'll give it that. Yeah, that's another.
You could have taken out a couple of love ballads, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, but it's cheesy. I do have to say Christopher Adkins sucks. Like, I don't understand why he's a terrible actor. His physical humor is bad. I don't like. He wasn't good in the Blue Lagoon. He wasn't good in this. So I don't get that. But again, the movie becomes about her. He's kind of becomes a joke. I mean, she kicks him in the balls at one point, like when they're supposed to be having a love scene, which I thought that was funny. I thought that was kind of like,
Oh, yeah.
hey, she's the strength in this film, and the framing story was really stupid, but I still kind of like my little cheesy 80s kid was like still kind of liked it. So yeah, I enjoyed this movie a lot, and yeah, I don't get like the 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like I would probably give it like a 50 if it was me. Like I enjoyed this movie. It's cheesy, it's crappy, but it's cheesy, crappy, fun. And I think it would make a good double feature with the Pirates of Penzance with Kevin Kline. Like, just see, and the one good thing this movie has, I love the real locations. I think it looks great. The Australian filming that they did. I love that they opened it up, that they're actually like doing these dances out in these open locations. If you watch the Kevin Kline version, it's all set bound. It feels like the stage play. So you can kind of compare those two. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't really work mixing the Gilbert and Sullivan with the pop songs, but I kind of went with it. You know, I mean, for me, it was fun. Like, and I just thought the movie was fun. Like, I never really got bored like RJ did. So to each his own. Like, this is where the fact that we grew up in different eras. You grew up in a certain era. I grew up in a certain era, and even as an adult, when you go back and watch movies from the past, that comes alive in you. So I think that's what it comes down to.
I was never bored. I was frustrated, but I was never
Mm-hmm.
bored.
All right, so we got to come to Sandy now. Yeah, tell us the good things you can say about Hook. Like, what are your favorite things about Hook? Yeah, anything good things you can say there. And I'm sorry, I have to go for just a second. So just if you just want to talk for a minute, I'm having a technical issue, and I'll be right back. So just take it away, Sandy.
You got it. I actually like this movie. Like, I wasn't brought on here to hate Hook. I was brought on here to defend the pirate movie and to tell everybody why I like it. For all the reasons that RJ said, I love the adventure of it. I love seeing that somebody can grow up but still become a kid again. And with a little bit of poking and a little bit of prodding and a little bit of fairy dust. I Dustin Hoffman is fantastic in this movie. Like, he's legitimately fantastic. He plays the villain so well, and then so vulnerably at the end when we see him without his long, dark hair, his Captain Hook hair, and he's just this withered old man. And to see that vulnerability, but to still see that a little bit of defiance still in him, still showed that he was, still a bad guy, at heart, and it didn't matter. I think that he was relieved. I think we saw that too. He was relieved that Peter came back, to give him something to strive towards. Robin Williams in this movie, once again, yeah, as the dad, as the person who grew up and forgot how to be a kid and didn't treat his kids very well as a workaholic, and just, outside of his whatever, he became. He played a fantastic role. The kids were in it. I mean, like, there's a ton of people in this movie that you just got to go look through the cast list and go, holy crap, he was in it too, or she was in it. Like, there's a lot of people in this movie. I wasn't as big a fan as the Lost Boys as a lot of people were. I thought it was kind of
it's very 90s, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, you know what? They were a united group. Like, they were a united group, and they stuck beside each other. They were brothers, the brothers, sisters. They were lost boys and girls, or, well, not lots of girls, but but I mean, it's you have to enjoy it, because Spielberg has such a good vision when it comes to fantasy. Like, he's done that throughout his entire career in different genres of fantasy, and it sucks you into it. So I don't have a lot bad to say about this movie, because I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed it, and I would probably go back and watch it. And like I did today, even on fast forward, it wasn't on 4 times fast forward, RJ. It was on flipping 1 times fast forward, so I could get through it in half the time. But just watching some scenes, you get that, you turn your head and look at it, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
So I mean, for all those reasons and all those
You
reasons,
actually
RJ,
do enjoy this movie.
yeah, it's not a horrible movie. In Spielberg's top 4 movies of all time.
By the way, Dan Allen has a message for you, RJ.
Dan doesn't like it. Dan's pissed.
he's very pissed. I know Dan. He may come for you.
It's not in his top 4 movies of all time, but you know what, RJ? That's the beautiful thing about movies is you can put it wherever you want on your list.
Yeah.
And I am cool with that because the pirate movie, as far as musicals go, it is, and comedies, it's up there for me. And my wife hates it. She hates it. But I will sit there and watch it, and every once in a while,
y'all want me to really?
I had my fiance watch a few minutes of it. She, I got some weird looks. That's for sure. It's like, what is that?
Y'all want me to really get Dan and other people going? Watch this. I hate Jaws.
What? All right. Jaws. Different show. We'll talk about that. We will find an episode. We will find an episode.
Mark Riley is flipping out right
now.
Jaws
in my top 3 of all time. So we will get to that another time. All right. So what brings us to the next section? And this is, I call it the open floor, but I think today we're just going to call it RJ Rants. We're just going to let RJ go to town on the pirate movie. Tell us, let the 80s, they've got 2 80s guys to yell out here. Why is the pirate movie suck and why do the 80s suck?
What can we put a timer on me just so I don't lose my shit right now? Oh my God. What was this crap I had to watch last night? Oh my God. Okay. First off, even though you told me exactly that this movie started in the 80s and then goes into Pirates of Penzance, that whole opening pissed me off.
What?
I was like, I have a musical pirate opening like I'm about to go on a high seas adventure, and all of a sudden I'm in South Beach. What the hell is this?
It's a pirate festival. It's Pirate Day.
Second of all, we never even confirmed the fact that this chick is asleep. She falls out of the boat, and we start with the dudes. What happened to her?
No.
We want to know why she went into the water.
It is a little weird that it's her fantasy and she's like not in it for 20 minutes. That is a little weird.
Exactly. She's not in it for 20 minutes. Second of all, like, not till the end does she even acknowledge that, like, yeah, this is a dream. Like, I fell over a boat and hit my head, and this is all in my imagination. But I'm not even to that part yet.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get to that ending.
Okay. What's the main dude's name again?
Frederick.
No, the actor.
Christopher Atkins.
I call the Blue Lagoon that is his singing voice. I call bullshit.
I actually, there was some debate on that. He said that they used he said he can't sing, and he said that they used and
it's very obvious that he can't sing.
He said that they used studio magic on his voice, and then there's also is another credited singer. So listening to it, my theory is hearing him and another singer together because it's kind of double tracked. Yes, I think you're hearing 2 singers at the same time to try to cover up his
So that was terrible. Don't even get me started on the music. You have the pirate musical songs and the 80s songs. Pick one. I don't care, but don't give me both. It joggles my mind. It throws me off completely. Where's the continuity in this?
Yeah.
He falls off a horse, says he's never ridden a horse before. In their whole freaking montage, when they fall in love, they are riding horses on the beach. That is bullshit.
Here's the thing, RJ.
No, I am not done.
This shows the difference because in the 80s, this was the 80s, man. Let's throw it all in there. Let's just throw it all in there. Let's have a pop song in there for like Dirty Dancing takes place in the 60s. They do a big 80s synth pop number at the end of the movie. It doesn't make any sense. That's the 80s.
That's fair.
In the 90s, people started taking stuff seriously, but in the 80s, let's just have fun. So I think that's the difference there.
I'm gonna get RJ back on track to ranting with this perfect sentence. When they are searching for the treasure and the pumping and blowing song comes on, and we get the animated animals that are
Oh
in
my
water.
god, those animated animals.
Come on.
What the hell?
Tell me that song isn't stuck in your
we're
head.
still talking about the good things, right? Because I
Oh
love
my
that.
god, that was
Oh my god,
so dumb.
Pumping.
You know, Sandy, that was one of the moments in this movie where I was like, God, I wish I'd seen this as a kid. Because this would have been totally up my alley as a kid.
The ridiculous amount of sexual innuendos. I can't even begin. How was this PG? How the hell was this movie PG?
I could sing all the songs. I could start into it right now if you want.
I do think it's probably the most erection jokes I've ever heard in a movie. Like I think it's got to be at least like
probably
30.
the most. Absolutely.
Well,
And then the final fight, those stupid Toronto. Oh my god. Shoot me in the
I like
butt.
Trim Traw's a good number from Pirates of Penzance.
And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the fight, wait a minute. I want a happy ending. Oh, this is your dream.
Great.
Give me a happy ending. Give me a fucking break.
He just sang. He sang the tune correct, so it's in his head now.
Oh, don't even get me started. How that shit is stuck in my head.
It'll be stuck for days.
That's right.
So the ending, RJ. Oh, the lightsaber. That was so stupid. The Jaws joke. When you like the Jaws rape joke. RJ, the ending. Let's talk about the ending. So
hold on.
She
wakes up. This guy just kissed her.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Her at the beginning.
Yeah, so she drowns. She's drowning. She's maybe gonna die. She's like gasping for life, and then he starts making out with her. Well, I didn't get what was going on.
Okay, hold on, RJ, hold on.
Don't you play it?
Don't
you play that song, Sandy?
Hold on.
Don't you play that song?
Listen. It's the rest of her little girl crew that make sure she doesn't get on the boat.
He didn't dump her. They pulled him away.
He was upset.
Okay.
Pulled him back. He went and found her on the beach because he liked her all along, and then they kiss. So,
but she's barely alive. She's gasping for life.
Movie magic.
They were back in the real world. I didn't get that. That was one of the moments in the movie where I'm like, RJ must be dying right now.
I was. I was waiting for it because I was watching the clock go down, and I'm like, there's like 2 minutes left. Are we really going to end in the fantasy one?
It was a pretty haphazard wrap up. That's for sure. It was pretty rushed. Were they getting married at the end? What was happening?
It was a big, gigantic wedding.
So, he means in the real world.
In the real world.
In the real world, were they also getting married as well?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a wedding. Or were they just like acting out the wedding from the musical?
I don't know.
Or did they jump forward? Was it like the Pirate Festival the next year and now they're getting married? Like so little is explained.
No, I think it was just a celebration that they'd found each other.
All I know is I hate that song so much, and it's gonna be stuck in my head for days.
That's the 80s, man. They'll get you.
But it was a catchy as hell song. Like, don't get me wrong. But oh my god, that ending was such bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I think
the other thing that hurt me, but I don't blame y'all for it, is because y'all said there's a lot of 80 references in there. Obviously, I didn't get those. So a lot of jokes that I felt like I was supposed to get, obviously I didn't get. And Dan is still upset. I do.
He's gonna be mad for a while. Yeah.
Oh, they all are. Bring it on. I don't care. I don't like Jaws.
Yeah, I'd rather you yell at RJ than me, Dan. All right. So, I just think that this, again, we got the 80s and we got the 90s here. Those Lost Boys scenes in Hook really, like, that set the tone for so many kids' movies going forward in the 90s. Like, those kid actors and that whole thing, that's so 90s. And then this movie with the pop music is so 80s. Like, you really have the representation of both decades with these two movies. Since we just listened to RJ rant for a while, you said you liked Hook, Sandy. Is there you got to kind of fight back a little here. I mean, you're on the 80s side. So is there anything you want to fire back at Hook before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I
Like-
don't. I think that I honestly think that it's not one of Spielberg's best movies.
Mm.
I think what he did before and what he did after. I mean, like let's talk about what he did right after this movie. I think he went right into Jurassic Park, and I mean, it's one of the most
That's fair.
Schindler's List.
memorable films of all time, and completely changed the special effects. Just like Star Wars did back in the '70s. So and if you put it up against his other children, type work, I don't think it holds up to them. I know RJ, you said you weren't a big ET fan. You are in the minority, my friend.
No, I know that. I do. Believe me, I do.
And I think if you were to ask people straight up, hey, what's your favorite children's movie for that Steven Spielberg directed?
They're gonna say E.T.
And people would be E.T. I don't think that. I don't think enough time was. I didn't like the Hook trying to sway, Peter's son, to be Hook's son. I didn't
my thing with that is that doesn't really make sense script wise, but Dustin Hoffman sells it. Like just because of his performance, I always bought into it. But yeah, if you just like as a script, it's like it's a narrative device. It doesn't really make sense.
Exactly.
Here's how I saw it. Peter would not fight him. He knew in his mind the only way to make Peter come back and fight him was to turn his kids over to his side.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it.
But why did the kids fall for it? I mean, just because they were neglected.
Exactly.
Jack falls for it because he's neglected by his dad, so now he's going to go along with the pirate. It's script writing
but think about it. At that age, for a young boy, that's a very easy thing to do. When you're looking at your father and you don't get along with him, and another older male comes along and lets you do what you want to do, you very easily get manipulated.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else there, Sandy? We're gonna have to wrap this up soon.
Yeah.
These always goes along.
I mean, it's honestly really hard for me to to hack on the movie too much. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. It's part of my Blu-ray collection. Nah. Will it be? Nah. I had to order the DVD for the pirate movie from overseas because it didn't even get a release over here. And I'll give a shout out to my best friend John Dyer, who used to work in a video store. He got it for me through his connections. So thank you very much. And I love it. So but once again, I'll stay for the record. Everybody's choice for what they want to love is everybody's choice for what they want to love. Nobody can change your mind. Maybe you can influence a little bit. I was hoping to influence RJ. I am so happy that I influenced Jeremy.
He hasn't fallen for my efforts yet either. We're going to get him to our side one of these days. One of these days, we're going to bring him to the 80s side. I just know it. But it's going to take a while.
It would probably take the 180s movie that I actually trumped you on that you haven't seen.
Well, you know what? Let's just give a little hint that we do have the April Fool's episode coming up. It's getting to be that time, and we may have a little surprise for people when we get there. So, okay, that's gonna wrap up that section, and now we're gonna have the final summation. So each of us has to say which of these movies best is a better representation of their decade. Which of these movies do we think really wins today and is the one that people should take away? Let's go ahead and I'll let RJ start. What the hell? RJ, which of these movies wins? Which represents their decades better? If you hadn't lived in either the 80s or the 90s, like which decade do you think really sings based on this movie, and what would be the winner?
I mean, I can honestly say for once, look, when it comes to pure what represents the decade, I mean, Pirates movie obviously represents what the 80s was. Like you said earlier, it's not trying to be anything different. It's a ridiculous.
It's kind of like all the movies you recommend. It's like the movies you recommend all the time. They're just cheesy, crazy, like 90s movies.
However, this movie is just bad. I'm sorry, but Hook is at least a serviceable movie. Even y'all can admit that. I'm sorry, but Hook still wins.
Do you think it really like tells you something about that era, about being a kid in the 90s, like what the 90s are?
Yeah,
like
the Lost Boys. The way they portray the Lost Boys is 90s teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Skateboarding, playing hoops with your friends.
Does have all that.
Like
does
I
have
said,
all that.
All grown-ups are pirates. We kill pirates. That's a 90s punk kid in a nutshell.
Yep. All right. So we got a vote for the 90s. Big shock from RJ there. We're going to go next to Sandy. Sandy, so what, just try to be as objective as you can. Which of these two movies do you think really better represents the decade, and do you think is really the standout movie that should win the day and get the vote here today?
Well, I will be objective, as I can be. The pirate movie absolutely represents the 80s. Everything that is the 80s was in that movie, and they made sure of it. Every pop culture reference, every every little, all the sexploitation that was in it, all the girls in bikinis, like the whole thing.
I kind of liked the gay joke that she made, like that.
Yeah.
That was funny. Like that was definitely in the culture at the time.
The fourth wall breaking. Ferris Bueller did it. A lot of these other 80s movies did it. That's a typical thing that happened in the 80s where people were breaking the fourth wall down. The songs were all 80s. Those songs were all 80s. That even the older ones were, like the
80s-ified.
80s-ified. Just the jokes were 80s jokes. So for a movie to be as closely knit in with a decade, it hands down goes to the pirate movie. You could have put Hook in the 2000s, you could have put it in the 70s, you could have put it in the 90s, you could have put it anywhere you wanted, and it would have still been Hook. It had absolutely.
Do you think it's more like, even though you said it's a bad movie, do you think it's maybe more entertaining because it's shorter? Hook is longer, maybe takes itself more seriously. Like, would you say that?
Hey, listen, as much as, like I said, the question was, if you were to watch it now, not having watched it as a kid, would you really, really like it? And I said, I would like it. I would be more objective, of course, about it now. But because of my love for it in the 80s, when I watched it, I love it now to this day. So, and I always will. And yeah, I do think that to answer your question, I do think that it would. It's a funnier movie. It's funny. It's got humor. It's got love. It's got sword fights. It's got honor. It's got girls kicking ass. It's got everything. It's got Ted Hamilton with a massive cod piece that he wears that's red and jeweled up. I mean, come on. I mean, it's got a song called "The Pirate King," for crying out loud. Seriously. I mean, yeah, hands down, it's an 80s movie. It represents the 80s perfectly. And like I said, you could dump Hook off in any decade, and it would have fit the same way.
All right, so we've got our vote for the 80s. We've got our vote for the 90s. So it falls on me. I'm the decider today.
I guess which way you're going to vote.
I'm the interesting position that I'm in. So basically, I'm divided. There's the 80s child Jeremy that I still listen to 80s like cheesy pop. Like 80s cheesy pop gets me going. It's just what does it for me. So all of that I enjoyed, and that movie really spoke to just. It was like thank you, Sandy. It's like I was back in the 80s again, and not like when we did the Dirt Bike Kid, it was like all the bad stuff of the 80s. It like brought back a bunch of like bad memories of all the terrible TV shows and all the bad stuff, and the weird stuff in that movie. Like, I thought the weird stuff in this movie worked. Like, this is gleefully, we're making all these jokes and we're making all these innuendos. That's just what the 80s were, and it's fun, and there's nothing mean-spirited about it. So thank you for taking me back to that. And then also, I'm divided because, Steven Spielberg really is, my heart. Like, he's the guy that made me love movies in the first place, and this was at an important time in my life when this movie came out. Like, I was becoming a film geek, a film lover, and Hook was right in that section, and it was right before we got, Jurassic Park and Schindler's List, and I think his career even went to the next level. And so that kid in me that loved Spielberg, that kid in the 90s that was becoming a lover of film, that part of me is, Hook speaks of that. And I do have to say I love Peter Pan. Like, I just love every version of Peter Pan. I just think it's like the greatest kid story. So this was, updating it like this, I always thought was cool, and I like what they did with it. So is it the cheesy pop-loving 80s kid, or is it the Spielberg, 90s young teenager? Who wins today? I'm sorry, it's got to be Spielberg. Hook in the 90s win today. Those little skateboarding, Lost Boys, jumping off the walls, going Rufio, Rufio. Those 90s kids, they got to win here today. I'm sorry. This is the second time I've gone against the 80s, and I'm hoping I won't make a habit out of it. But yeah, 90s have to win today. But, again, thank you for having me watch this movie. I love this movie, and you gave RJ a lot of pain, which I always appreciate. So thank you for hurting RJ. And yeah, I'll be inflicting some pain on him in our next episode. So that's going to do it for Nostalgia Goggles for today. So we're going to be back on track for our next episode and give you the episode we promised, which is we're going to have our guest Ryan Permison on, and we're going to be talking about Ninja Kids movie, Ninjas martial arts sequels. So it's going to be the Karate Kid Part 2 and Three Ninjas Kick Back, the movies where they both go to Japan. So we'll be talking about that and having some more aid. Now I'm going to be outnumbered because I'm going to have the two 90s kids against me talking about their Three Ninjas. So, and I'm really in suspense because I want to know what Ryan Permison had never seen Karate Kid 2. He watched it for the first time, and he still won't tell me what he thought until the show. So I'm very curious to see. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. And RJ, anything you want? Any plugs you have? Where can we find you?
You can find me here kicking ass for the 90s.
No, 80s they're gonna win one of these days. I swear to God, 80s is gonna win.
I'm pretty sure the April Fool's one you're talking about when we have that surprise for them.
Not that one. Yes. No. That one won't win. That one won't win. But another time will. Another time.
Oh yes, it will. You think you want to try to fight me on that one? Oh, you're not gonna win that fight. But no, I mean, you guys, you can find me here on Full Metal Media. I'm always around. Check out our Harry Potter match. Me and Sandy were able to host that one. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Really good match.
Great job, guys.
If you're not spoiled on it yet, definitely check it out. It's a hell of a match. Sandy wrote some awesome questions, and I just stand there looking like an idiot.
You were so funny, RJ. You're a great RJ.
I tried. I just tried. I couldn't do anything else.
And Sandy, where can we find you?
You can always find me on Full Metal Media, whether or not that's at Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitter. And you can always Championship Week is coming up for Full Metal Trivia, guys. Coming up, so be sure to check it out. We'll have everything posted on Facebook soon, competitors and times of matches. We really want you guys to do it. And as far as today goes, RJ, Jeremy, I'm just going to keep on pumping and blowing.
You do that, buddy. You do that. And I'm Jeremy the Adam Adams. You can find me, Jeremy Paul Adams on YouTube, Jeremy Paul Adams on Facebook, here at Full Metal Media, hosting all the various shows, and also on the Worldwide Movie Games Network. So that's going to do it for today. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I'm Jeremy the Adam Adams signing off. And put those nostalgia goggles back on. We're out.